Good afternoon, Namaskar. I, Kriti Vadhera, would like to welcome all our viewers, learners, teachers, educators to CIET NCERT's live phone program. You are watching us live on VmVideocon Channel number 8, and this session is going to be for class 8 students. The subject which we will be discussing is going to be science, and the topic for today's session is going to be cell structure and its functions. And the guest who has joined us for today's discussion, I would like to introduce Mrs. Reena Mohapatra. She's from DAV Bhubaneswar. Namaskar Reena ji, we welcome you to PME Vidya.
Hello. Good afternoon viewers. I hope all of you can listen to me. This is my first class with you all. But let's have a bit of recapitulation.
Mrs. Mohapatra, it's going to be the first interaction for this particular chapter. But before that, I would like to tell our viewers here that you are watching us live, as I said, on VmVideocon Channel number 8. And if you have any questions and queries, do let us know. Share with us. You can dial on our toll-free numbers. Numbers would be 1800111265 and the other number is 1800112199. To watch the live streaming of this program, please log into our official YouTube channel, NCERT official, and there also in the live chat box you can send all your questions. We will be making each and every effort to give back answers to all your questions. Our expert will be answering them back. So beginning with today's session on science for class 8 students. Yes, Mrs. Mohapatra, now you can proceed with this chapter.
Okay, so good afternoon. So as Preeti ma'am has told, it's my first class, I think with you all. So little bit recapitulation, let's do this recapitulation, let's do of lower classes which already you know. Before we start our session, little bit of assignment I'm giving you. Please look around you and make a list of around 15 objects. In these objects, there may be one or there may be your pen even. So you understand what I am talking about? Around you, around 15 objects, just keep in mind and then make a mental list of these objects and categorize them into living and non-living. I think by the time I have finished this sentence, you have done it. You have divided these objects into living. How did you do? Because you have already learned in lower classes what are the living characteristics. You know that living things, they move, they respire, they reproduce, they grow. See, you know they move, but still you will never keep a cloud which is moving or a river which is moving in your list of living objects. Isn't it? The reason here I'm not discussing all this in details because already you know, because this kind of movement in living organisms is due to internal forces.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Mohapatra, here I would like to ask you, because we are discussing this session for standard 8 students, so there should be some curiosity, to ask ourselves why this is happening, or there should be a research sort of a thing in this particular age, teenage. So I would like to ask you on behalf of our viewers that why do we characterize things as living and non-living, as you told our viewers to make a list of 15 items. Please elaborate.
So you want to say why some are living and others are non-living, isn't it?
Right.
It's a very beautiful question, I would say. This is the basic question. Yes, certainly. Some organisms, we categorize them as living things. Why Because they have got living characteristics. Some characteristics I've already told about that, isn't it? Now, why it happens, because living things, they are made and very peculiar structural unit. That structural, you can say cell is the smallest laboratory in the world. ऐसे आप कह सकते हो कि इस दुनिया में सबसे छोटा सा लेबोरेटरी अगर कहा जाए तो वो है सेल. क्यों ये है? क्योंकि हर सेकंड में सेल के अंदर there are thousands of chemical reactions taking place and the resultant of these chemical reactions, or the sum up of all these chemical reactions, are in the form of living characteristics. That due to these chemical reactions, externally the organisms is showing their movement, their respiration, etc. So here what is most important? That living things, they are made up of cells. Okay. So today we'll learn about this beautiful structural unit which defines the organisms and gives their living characteristics. So we'll talk about cell today. In this session we'll learn about the structure of cell, we'll learn about its function, we'll also learn about what are the sizes, shapes and different types of cells. Okay. See, all of you must be knowing in 1665 a scientist, Robert Hooke, he had observed cells inside, he invented a microscope, very simple type of microscope. Just he collected some lenses and kept them in at proper distances, and which gave a magnified view when some objects were. Okay. So this way he had taken a thin piece of cork. All of you know cork is a plant product and cork is also a, and he observed it under his crude microscope. I'm sorry to say crude because it is a very fundamental, very basic type of microscope. And what he observed, please look at the slide. You can see here he observed that, see here, which looks like honeycomb, or it looks like as if, in Latin, cellula means small compartments. So from these he gave the term cell. On living cells, that means dead cells he had observed. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek should be cells for the first time under microscope. He also invented his own microscope, but that was having more magnification than a microscope. Allowed him to observe different types of living things. Like here you can find some in this on this also many more objects he had found, and these objects not only he had observed but he had also recorded them. He had drawn, he got them, he had written all these things. So this was, you can say, that a very well systematic and recorded observation he had done. In 1838 and 39, two scientists at two parts of the world independently, they were observing different types of plants and animals and their parts. And what did they observe? They observed that all the parts obtained from different types of plants and animals, they contained cells. So from where all are made up of cells. Okay. Now, when you go to higher classes, you'll know about it, their findings and few more. So I'm not discussing in details. Now, so we have got that all the organisms are made up of cells. Now, then the question comes: are all the organisms made up of single cell or more than one cells? Look at the slide. So here you can find basically, depending on the number of types, that is unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms, as you see here you get Chlamydomonas, amoeba, euglena and bacteria. Okay. So comparatively, compared to bacteria, rest three belong to higher rank in the rank of evolution. Okay. So these so-called higher organisms which are made up of single cell, they are also called by some scientists as are cellular organisms. Means no, you know. Why they unicellular? Those scientists, they felt that an organism should be made up of cells, but these organisms contains a single cell. They consist of a single cell, and this cell is equivalent to an organism. So that's why they used the term. There are, in the second group, we keep multicellular organisms, which are the organisms which are. So in multicellular organisms, you can, if you look at the slide, you can find higher plants, organisms. And you know, whatever be the size of the organism, say you take example of a giraffe, which is, but the cell size is similar. You know, the size of the animal or plants doesn't depend on the cells are making them, that is on the number of cells. So regarding the size of the cell, let's, what is the size of the cells? If you bacteria, they belong to the smallest cell known. Okay, so these bacteria, you know, some are having the size of 0.0 meters in size. They are the smallest in general. Then you can find here ostrich egg is there. The white one is the ostrich egg, whose 5.9 inch by 5.1 inch in average, and weight is 1.4 kg. See here, the brown one is chicken egg. For comparison, that has been kept in comparison to chicken egg. Ostrich egg is known as the largest cell. Regarding longest cell, we can take neurons. These neurons may be, some neurons are less than 1 millimeter in size, in length, 1 meter. You know, the neurons which are carrying information or sensation from the feet, and this sensation should be carried up to the brain, even up to 1 meter. So these are different sizes of the cells. Regarding the shape of the cells, even shapes of the cells also vary. Okay, there is certain cells, you know, which do not have any regular or definite shape. We call them as they are having irregular shape. Just to think about what are
WBCs are Mohapatra ji, white blood cells, I say.
Yes, they are white blood cells. Right. Very good. So you remember. So white blood cells, so what is their function? This question is for viewers. So you must be, I am sure you are also giving answers there in the live chat box. So their function is to kill if any foreign object is entering inside the body. Okay. In general, these, you know, white blood cells are of different types and they have got different shapes. Just let's look here. White blood cells, they're normally present inside the blood capillaries. Okay. Now, okay, two capillaries. This is one capillary, this is one capillary. If any foreign object or microorganism, pathogenic microcapillaries, or in between the tissues or cells, then what would happen? WBC will come out from the capillaries into this space, and then they will encircle that microorganism and kill them. For that, what is required? In between capillaries in the very small, WBC has to creep out through that gap. So please look at the slide. You can find here that these are the WBCs. In general, their shape is like this, but when they come out through the very fine pores of the capillaries, they become elongated, and then they come out, and after coming out again, they become of their own shape. Is it clear? So these are the lymphatic capillary and this is the blood capillary. Okay, so to kill the microorganisms, they change their shape. Likewise, you take a or it catches food, then continuously it produces finger-like projections called as pseudopodia. And these finger-like projections are never of similar size and shape. As a result, they continuously change their shape, as you can see here. Okay, here in this picture you can see how pseudopodia of amoeba are getting formed, and every time amoeba is changing its shape.
Okay. So here I would like to ask you something, Reena Mohapatra ji. We are continuously discussing about the shapes and size of the cell structure. So what is the advantage of having small size in bacterial cells, if I talk about?
Okay. Now see, bacterial cells are bacteria unicellular organisms, already we have discussed. Now you know, when the cell is small in size, what would happen? The surface area will be more in comparison to a larger sized cell. Will be more in case of smaller sized cell. And see, bacteria being unicellular, they are in direct contact. So let's take, I'll take this, let's take this is bacterial cell, and it is in direct contact with the nutrient medium, in which medium it is present. There, this surface area is in direct contact. So what would happen? They can absorb nourishment from their environment very efficiently, because surface area is more, so more amount of nutrition they can absorb. And this you can see, they are very active also, you know. A bacterial cell, it divides after every 20 minutes, which is a very, very fast rate of reproduction, because you know, for reproduction energy is required, and they're getting lots of energy from where? From their surrounding. They're absorbing food materials, they're breaking down these food materials, getting energy and utilizing for their reproduction. So within very short period, bacterial cells can increase their number rapidly. So this is an advantage of being
Mrs.
small.
Mohapatra, we have a limitation of time for this session, although it is very informative. Our viewers are getting a lot out of today's session, but I would request you to kindly wrap up. We just have 5 minutes left now.
Okay, so very little will be wrapped up. I'll try. Okay, now see, we are discussing about shapes of cells. As we see, cells are having different shapes, and you know, these different shapes of the cells, that is dependent on their functions. What kind of functions they are doing? If it has to provide protection, cells will become flattened. As you look here, cells will become flattened. So when they're flattened, they can withstand, they can provide more protection, because flattened things, you know, there more pressure will be distributed everywhere. Like the stomata, you can find stomatal pore is present, because stomatal pore is guarded by two bean shaped cells. And in bean, you know what happens? Bean has got a notch at its one point, and in between this notch, space has been created. So always shape of the cell is dependent on what type of function they are performing. Now let's come to types of cells. Okay. Now all of you might have heard about nucleus. Viewers, this is for you. So you have heard about nucleus. What is nucleus? Nucleus is regarded as controlling center of the cell. We are discussing about that inside the cell many reactions, chemical reactions are taking place. These reactions are possible because of the nucleus. Nucleus controls all these reactions. Okay. Now see, actually inside nucleus, certain other chemical substances which are called as nucleic acids, later you'll come to know about this. Actually these nucleic acids, they control cells are there, which are called as prokaryotic cell. These cells have this nucleic acid, this nuclear material they are having, but this nuclear material are not arranged in the form of a nucleus. Such type of cells are called as prokaryotic cell, and the other type of cell which are called as eukaryotic cell, they possess this nuclear material again surrounded by membrane, by two membranes, and the whole structure together. That means the membrane within which nuclear material is present together called as nucleus. So in eukaryotic cell, nucleus is present. In prokaryotic cell, proper nucleus is absent. As you can find it, this is this is a prokaryotic cell, a bacteria where nuclear material is present, but that is not surrounded by any nuclear membrane. Whereas in this slide, in this picture, you find nuclear material is surrounded by membrane. That's why a definite nucleus is present. Now, yes, we are talking about nucleus, and we have also seen that in eukaryotic cell this nucleus is present. Now you know, in eukaryotic cell, which are multicellular eukaryotic organisms, in their case, many cells are present, they are multicellular, and they perform a particular function. And this group of cells is called as tissue. Okay? A group of tissues together form an organ, and a group of organs together form an organ system, and several organ systems together form an organism. Just you can see here, you can find here, this is a muscle cell, single muscle cell, which is thin and narrow. They group together to form muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is made up of several muscle cells. And a special type of muscle tissue, that is cardiac muscle tissues, together form heart.
Right.
And heart,
we just have a minute left. I would request you to kindly,
okay,
wrap the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, this picture I'll finish. So, heart along with other organs like spleen and other lungs, etc., it forms a circulatory system, digestive system, nervous system, all together that forms an organism. Cell and organism. Okay. Is there any question, viewers? You can ask me.
I guess we can discuss this chapter further in more detail with you, Ms. Mohapatra, in upcoming sessions. And the information which you shared today, they were very informative and actually valuable for our 8th standard students. Thank you for joining us today. And that was, yes, thank you, Mrs. Mohapatra, for joining us today. And that is it for 8th standard students, but this session will be coming for you. Stay connected, remain connected, and in this next session, we will be discussing about a mathematics topic. Square and square roots will be discussed. So don't go away anywhere, remain connected. We are coming back just in a short while.